Hello, I'm Dr. Mark Darcy, and today I'm going to be talking about COVID-19, the novel coronavirus. Um, there's been a lot in the news over the last month or two about COVID-19. The disease started in Wuhan province in China back in December. It's called COVID-19 because, COVID-19 stands for Coronavirus Disease 2019. It's a coronavirus that became a problem in 2019 in December in the Wuhan province and then spread rapidly throughout China. And over the last month or two, the disease has also spread to other countries and is now a pandemic. It's now worldwide. I should say that I'm recording this session on the 25th of March. So we're still in the relatively early days of this disease. And things are developing rapidly. So what I'm going to discuss now may change very soon, and I've got a feeling that this particular lecture will become out of date in just a few weeks, but I'm going to try and summarize where we are now. I'm not going to talk about the politics of the disease, and I'm not going to go too much into the epidemiology. I'm mainly going to talk about the science, how the disease works, and what we can do to protect ourselves. But I will mention a little bit of the history. First of all, the disease itself is thought to have originated in bats, although that's still debatable. Bats do carry a lot of viruses, and that virus is excreted in their guano, in their feces. Now, we don't know if the disease spread directly from bats to humans. It may have been pangolins that spread the disease. So pangolins are ground dwelling and they do come into contact with bat guano. And these pangolins are sold in wet markets in China for food. So this is possibly where the disease came into contact with humans and spread into our population. But we're still a little bit unsure. Time will tell on this one. Okay, so I think we should get started now. So I'm going to get straight to my PowerPoint, and here we go now. Okay, so this is coronavirus. This is what it looks like. It's called a coronavirus because of the little crowns on its surface. At least they look a little bit like crowns. They're actually proteins, but they are typical of coronaviruses. Now, coronaviruses are actually quite common. About 30% of all common colds result from types of coronavirus. But the common cold is a type of coronavirus that tends to infect the upper respiratory tract, whereas COVID-19 tends to infect the lower respiratory tract, which is why it's so dangerous. It can cause breathing difficulties and even result in pneumonia. Okay, so coronaviruses are a large family of viruses which may cause illness in animals and humans. In humans, there are a number of coronaviruses that are known to cause respiratory infections, ranging from the common cold to the more severe diseases such as Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, MERS, and severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS. This is the most recently discovered coronavirus, COVID-19, and it's a little bit different from SARS and MERS. Now, you may recall that when SARS and MERS came out, there was a little bit of a worry that they may spread around the world and become pandemics, but that didn't actually happen. A number of reasons for that, mainly with a disease such as SARS, the reason it didn't spread so rapidly is because it's so infectious, too infectious, in fact. You catch the disease and you develop symptoms very rapidly. And at which point you become bedridden and unable to spread the disease. That's the problem with COVID-19. It isn't quite so virulent, which basically means that a person may have very moderate symptoms or no symptoms at all for several days. And in that time, they might be able to spread the disease to other people. So COVID-19. The infectious disease caused by the most recently discovered coronavirus. This new virus and disease were unknown before the outbreak began in Wuhan province in China in December 2019. And at first it looked like the disease might be contained within Wuhan province or at least within China. However, it did escape early this year and is now spread pretty much to every country in the world. Now, COVID-19 has a capsule, and that's important. Viruses can be naked or they can have a capsule. A naked virus is just a viral particle which contains DNA or RNA surrounded by a protein shell, so it's quite a dry structure. Um, Viruses with capsules, however, are different. They have a kind of waxy coating around them which helps protect those viruses so they can survive longer in the environment. This is actually one of the reasons why there is a hope that if the weather gets hotter in summer, that the outbreaks in northern latitudes will start to dissipate. Because in hot weather, the capsule dries out and the viral particles are easily destroyed. So cooler temperatures help promote the virus. How long can it survive? Well, COVID-19 can survive perhaps 24 to 48 hours or maybe even a few days. We're not totally sure yet. It does depend on temperature and humidity. There have been a few experiments performed where they've taken the COVID-19 virus and they've placed it on various surfaces at various temperatures to see how long it can survive. And in some cases, it did survive up to 5 days, but one thing you must understand is that those experimental conditions are not necessarily representative of the real world. When we place viral particles on surfaces, we tend to put highly concentrated numbers of the virus on surfaces, which means it's more likely to survive for longer periods of time. However, humans, when we cough and spread viral particles onto surfaces, the particle density may be much less than it is in the lab. So perhaps the virus can last up to 5 days on surfaces, perhaps just 24 hours or so. We'll know more in the next few months. Temperature is also very important. If the temperature is high, the virus does not survive anywhere near as long as if the temperature is low. So COVID-19 is what we call an RNA virus. That's actually important. So I'm going to discuss the difference between an RNA virus and a DNA virus. Now, the coding material in animal cells is DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. Now, DNA is quite stable. It doesn't mutate very often. Now, viruses can contain DNA as their coding material, or they can contain RNA. Now, RNA viruses are a little bit more unstable. The nucleic acid, RNA, ribonucleic acid, is very prone to mutation. And the more it mutates, the more the virus changes. Long story short, if you look at something like measles, which is a DNA virus, it doesn't mutate very often. So if you've been vaccinated against measles when you're a child, you're probably still immune to it. RNA viruses, however, such as influenza, mutate quite regularly, which is why we regularly need new vaccines to be developed. As our immune cells, they lose the ability to fight the virus as it changes over time. Now, COVID-19 is an RNA virus, which means it does mutate quite easily. We don't know how easily yet. That still is unclear. It could be that COVID-19 doesn't mutate too often, which means if you get over the virus or you're vaccinated, you might be immune for some time. Or it could be that it mutates very regularly, meaning that new vaccines may need to be developed on an annual basis. We're still not completely sure about that. So RNA viruses such as influenza and COVID-19 have a high mutation rate, and that is key. We now have a pandemic, but the virus will possibly become endemic. Now, an epidemic is when a disease spreads through a population, for example, a country. A pandemic is when a disease spreads around the world. Now, when a disease becomes endemic, that is when the disease spreads around the world and mutates regularly, and therefore keeps coming back. It doesn't necessarily need to mutate regularly to keep returning, but if it does mutate regularly, it makes it more likely that the disease will return regularly. And because COVID-19 is now spread around the world and it is an RNA virus, it may be that it's now endemic, it's just part of the population and regularly returns. Now that might be scary. You might think, oh, it's bad enough right now with the first pandemic, but if it comes back every year, how are we going to cope? Well, it's likely that after a year or two, the virus will not be quite as deadly, just because a lot of people will have developed some sort of immunity. And we will also have vaccines under development by that point. So this first spread of the virus is probably going to be the worst, although time will tell. Now, the symptoms, an overview of the symptoms. People may experience a runny nose, a sore throat, a cough, a fever, difficulty breathing in severe cases, and possibly nausea and digestive issues. This is a new one. In some cases, it seems that patients may suffer nausea and digestive issues such as diarrhea. The most dangerous issues are the breathing difficulties that a percentage of patients do suffer from. So let's go into a bit more depth. The most common symptoms of COVID-19 are fever, tiredness, and a dry cough. Some patients may have aches and pains, nasal congestion, runny nose, sore throat, or diarrhea. These symptoms are usually mild and begin gradually. Some people become infected but don't develop any symptoms and don't feel unwell. Most people, about 80%, recover from the disease without needing special treatment. So 80% of cases are relatively mild. However, around 1 out of every 6 people who contracts COVID-19 becomes seriously ill and may need to be put on a ventilator due to difficulty breathing. Older people and those with underlying medical conditions such as diabetes, high blood pressure, asthma, and other conditions are more likely to develop serious illness. So basically, if you have a fever or you have a cough, you should seek medical attention. Now, the figure of 80% of people have mild to moderate symptoms, that makes a lot of people feel complacent. If you're youngish or healthy, then you're probably just going to get mild symptoms, probably. So you may think, why do I need to isolate? Well, the reason is that even if you have mild symptoms, you may spread the disease to people that are more vulnerable, to the elderly or people with underlying medical conditions. Basically, you could be responsible for the death of several people. If you infect one person and they infect 2 people and they infect 2 people and each one of those infects 2 people, the numbers get huge very quickly. So if you have any symptoms, it's your duty really to isolate yourself to avoid spreading the disease to susceptible people. Plus, the WHO, the World Health Organization, I've said that this disease could spread to 60 to 80% of the world's population. And if that's true, that includes a lot of elderly and people with underlying medical conditions. So millions could die if we don't try to restrain ourselves from spreading this disease. Okay, so how is it spread? People can catch COVID-19 from others who have the virus. Disease can spread from person to person through small droplets from the nose or mouth, which are spread when a person with COVID-19 coughs or exhales. These droplets land on objects and surfaces around the person. Other people then catch COVID-19 by touching these objects or surfaces, then touching their eyes, nose, or mouth. People can also catch COVID-19 if they're breathing droplets from a person with COVID-19 who coughs out or exhales droplets. This is why it's important to stay more than 1 meter or 3 feet away from a person who is sick. Now, the droplets that a sufferer of COVID-19 coughs out land on surfaces, and those moist droplets will contain the capsulated viral particles. They land on surfaces and they can easily then be picked up by other people. One of the easiest ways to pick up viral particles is through one of these devices. If I speak on a phone, I'm exhaling viral particles, droplets, which will land on the phone. I then place my phone on the surface. Someone else then touches the surface, puts their hand to their mouth, to their eyes, to their face, and contracts coronavirus. So Phones are objects that you should be very careful handling around this disease. The first thing that I do when I get home is I wipe down my phone. You should do the same. Now, you might think I don't tend to touch surfaces and then touch my eyes or my mouth, but you might be surprised. A study was performed not that long ago. A group of people were left in a room and told not to touch their face or their eyes or their mouth, none of this area at all with their hands for the duration of the experiment. And people just couldn't resist. It's a subconscious mechanism. Within an hour, pretty much everyone had touched their eyes, their face, their mouth several times. So it's a habit we need to get out of. Difficult habit to get out of, but we need to all try if we're going to avoid spreading this virus. So how long does it survive on surfaces? It's not certain how long the virus that causes COVID-19 survives on surfaces, but it seems to behave like other coronaviruses. Studies suggest that coronaviruses, including the preliminary studies that are looking into COVID-19, may persist on surfaces for a few hours to several days. This may vary under different conditions: temperature, humidity, the absorbance of the material. For example, metallic objects may hold on to the virus for longer. At least that's what we think so far. If you think a surface may be infected, clean it with simple disinfectant to kill the virus and protect yourself and others. Clean your hands with an alcohol-based hand rub or wash them with soap and water. Avoid touching your eyes, mouth, or nose. It's easy said than done, I know, but just try to keep clean. Just keep washing your hands. I know a lot of selfish people have basically emptied the supermarkets of many products, including hand sanitizers and hand washes, but you can always make your own. I use pure ethanol and aloe vera gel, 2 parts ethanol to 1 part aloe vera gel. That makes a very effective hand sanitizer. So who is at risk? While we are still learning about how COVID-19 affects people, older people and persons with pre-existing medical conditions, especially people with lung issues such as COPD or cancer, appear to be a high risk of developing serious issues. And even if you're otherwise healthy, you may develop serious issues and you may end up on a ventilator. Not something that you want to do. Even if you're a young guest, you'll probably get over the condition. But if you end up on a ventilator, it will be an unpleasant experience. So it's something you want to avoid if possible. So now let's talk about possible treatments for this condition. At the moment, treatments are still under development, but a lot of treatments are under development. It's probably going to be about a year to 18 months before we have a vaccine, although this may be accelerated. We've got a lot of people working on vaccines and treatments at an accelerated way. We've never produced and tested a vaccine in less than 18 months, but this may be the first time. So the first type of vaccine is known as an mRNA vaccine. So a new NIH phase 1 clinical trial of an investigational RNA vaccine for COVID-19 has begun in Seattle in the USA. It involves using messenger RNA, mRNA, to help the immune system fight off the disease. Now, RNA vaccines utilize an mRNA strand that codes for a disease-specific antigen. Antigens are the little proteins on the surface of things like viruses that our immune systems recognize and attack. The vaccine delivers the mRNA strand to the body cells where the genetic information is used to produce the antigen. So basically, your cells make this antigen. So you're not making the virus, you're just making the surface flags that identify a virus to the immune system. Similar to a conventional vaccine-derived antigen, these cell-derived antigens drive an immune response, making the body immune to any actual COVID-19 virus if it arises. Then there are pharmacological therapeutics. Hydroxychloroquine is a common antimalarial drug that is also used to treat rheumatoid arthritis and a disease known as lupus. It is relatively safe and has few side effects. A few other studies have demonstrated this compound's effectiveness against coronaviruses. For example, in vitro studies in 2004 and 5 showed that hydroxychloroquine is a potent inhibitor of SARS-CoV, the SARS virus. Antibodies. Scientists at DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, are working to develop a therapeutic strategy against SARS-CoV-2 using molecular antibodies. They've been working on this for a while, sorry, monoclonal antibodies. They've been working on this for some time. Antibodies are proteins that identify pathogens for destruction by the immune system. They arise from different cell lineages and bind to multiple epitopes, so multiple regions of things like viruses. So these are regions on viral proteins to which immune cells bind to drive a targeted immune response. Monoclonal antibodies, on the other hand, are made by identical immune cells cloned from a single unique parent cell. So we can make these monoclonal antibodies in the lab as well as in the body. They bind to a single specific epitope. Now, we're hoping that antibodies against SARS-CoV-2 might be developed a little bit further to then fight COVID-19. So the technology is already developed or under development. We just need to modify it a little bit, and hopefully then we could produce antibodies that would attack and destroy COVID-19. Okay, that's all for now. Thank you very much for watching and listening. I will probably create a further update as we progress, as the situation progresses, really. So look out for further updates in the coming weeks or months. Hopefully this condition, this disease, will peter out in the next few months if countries continue their stringent self-isolation policies. It's down to us to ensure that this virus is eradicated, or at least the number of cases drops and our health systems are then able to cope. Okay, thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you again soon.